So today we are reading Shrimad Bhagavatam Canto 5, Chapter 14, Text 30.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Kṛṣṇa prabhu, can you please read this Sanskrit?
Tai uru vanchito brahmakulam samavasangstesham shilam upanayanadi shrauta smarta karmanushtanena bhagavato yagya purushasya radhanam evatat arochayan shudra kulam bhajate nigamachare ashuddhito yasya midhuni bhavaha kutumba bharanam yathava narajate.
Now we'll read the translation. The pseudo svāmīs, yogis and incarnations who do not believe in the Supreme Personality of Godhead are known as pāṣaṇḍīs. They themselves are fallen and cheated because they do not know the real path of spiritual advancement. And whoever goes to them is certainly cheated in this journey. When one is thus cheated, he sometimes takes shelter of the real followers of Vedic principles, brāhmaṇas of those in Kṛṣṇa consciousness, who teach everyone how to worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead according to the Vedic rituals. However, being unable to stick to these principles, these rascals again fall down and take shelter among śūdras, who are very expert in making arrangements for sex indulgence. Sex is very prominent among animals, like monkeys, and such people who are enlivened by sex may be called descendants of monkeys. So you see, this Darwin's theory is getting uncovered here. Well, yeah, on the one hand it is a joke, but on the other hand, how do we understand this connection with animals? Why does it even hit our brain? Why do we even think about it? Because we have some common characteristics probably, and if there are nothing else except these common characteristics, we try to find this direct connection with animals. So if a person is given a capability of thinking about God, about the absolute truth, there is no connection with animals at all. So if we see just the biological demands, well, yes, of course, it seems like there's just an evolution. So why do we have this evolution? You know, just to have these principles like self-defense, eating, sleeping, and reproducing. So that's how we see this tendency. And there's nothing else that connects us with animals. To find the reason of reasons, you know, this solely humane aspect of living. No one else has this kind of consciousness. Birds, animals, no one. Searching for the truth, for the scientific truth, it's not there. It doesn't exist in animals. So if you remove this main component, the most subtle component of the human's consciousness, you only have this straight connection with animals. And it seems like the origin takes place at the animal level, But it only seems like that. But if we underline this difference, that a person is given this opportunity to think about God, then you will find nothing in common between animals and man and evolution. We'll see no evolution. Just imagine animals starting thinking about the essence of life, the meaning of life. There are some even human tribes in Australia that were found in 70s, back in the 70s of the last century, that they look like primitive people. They didn't even have any components of religion. No forms of worshipping were existent. So they were just living to eat, to continue to reproduce, to fight. They were very skillful warriors. So their intelligence was enough to adapt to this life. But they didn't have enough consciousness. So when people came there on cars, so these tribes, first time in their lives, they saw some civilized people on cars and trucks. So these people, they didn't even get interested in all these technical things. They didn't even ask any questions. See, they had no questions, like where these people came from, what all these cars and trucks. So you see, there are some forms of life like this as well. But matter of fact, a human starts from a level when he starts asking questions about the essence of life. So who is life? It's about your consciousness. Something that the material experience cannot give you, this material evolution. It is given to us from above. Or it's called shruti, it comes down from above. So you can awaken this spiritual consciousness. He can see the difference between the matter and the spirit. It's an amazing thing. It's an amazing what's happening from the spiritual point of view. It's a literal incarnation. We've been to so many living forms, and now thanks to Vedas, thanks to religion, a person can find the way out. So here in this text, we discuss some pseudo svāmīs and yogīs, which have no belief, no faith. They just have them theoretics. They might even talk about God. There was an academician, Russian academician, Amosov. So he was talking quite openly that the faith in God is actually impregnated in person, biologically impregnated in a person, by just biological features. And he used to say that a person is not afraid of life in any state, in any condition. So he was searching all these questions. Although he wasn't worshipping God, he wasn't developing spiritually. He was just searching it as a scientist. So he said that believing in God is naturally impregnated in a person. Because a person instinctively, on the level of instinct, believes in something. It is a natural inclination. So animals, they also have something like that, like prides, lion prides. Some herds, they have some leaders that are followed by all the rest of the animals. So there is some leadership. So it is a natural thing that there's a leader and others follow him. So that's why it is said that when a person is really brightly different from the others, he is accepted and worshipped by the others. And it's really easy to become a pseudo preacher or pseudo svāmī, a great sannyasi that controls his senses or totally renounced, or yogis. There are a lot of people that reach some levels. They present themselves as great ones. They can demonstrate the level of power. They do it when they become better than the others. When they're not better than the others, they just do not show off so much, they just copy the others. So they just pseudo svāmīs and yogis, imposters. But they do not believe in the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Today this is the highest criterion. Just these days, religion is like atheism. It doesn't help people to develop spiritually. So most of the people, they just deny the existence of the personality of Godhead. Because now this self-identification with the physical body is stronger than before. That's why people do not accept the personality of Godhead. They just worship some other people. The ones who can build some skyscrapers. Like, oh, look at this person, he's so powerful. So people start worshipping this person because they think it's impossible what he had done. So people want to be imposters. They want to be called yogis or svāmīs or politicians because glory to them is even more precious than life. That's what they live for. But spiritually they are blind because they do not know the true spiritual path. It's not even familiar to them. It's unknown to them. So some people ask for help, but these imposters, they cannot help anyone. They just get some followers, becoming even more powerful, but that's a great deception indeed. So here it also says in the text that rascals, they cannot follow the prescriptions of Vedas. So what way out do they find? Just to prove that this civilization. We need karma, enjoyment. So judging by this level, this civilization is considered to be great. So the more enjoyment we have, the better. We can enjoy things, whatever things we want in this time. Anything that you want exists right now. So there are some stores and mega stores, some supermarkets, hotels, huge parking lots. So everyone is just trying to gratify our senses. That's the point. Work and enjoy, work and enjoy. So that's what all of us are involved in. So that's why it is called the civilization of śūdras. Work and enjoy. And when they gratify their senses, and they get some range of this sensual gratification, they become mad. People become insane because they're totally blinded by the sexual enjoyment, and that's how they go back down to the animal level, where this sexual desire totally overcomes. We only think about the relations between men and women. Musicians, all these performers and actors, they all do it just for the women. Otherwise, there is no power. It's called Midhunya Pava. So they cultivate it by the different forms of fashion. They change everything, they refreshen these fashion styles. They try to refreshen these fashion tendencies. And more, do they go insane? And all these agitated senses, they drive people crazy. They become, they feel hysterics. So look at all these famous people. If the senses are not gratified, he's got the right to get irritated, to scream it out loud, to express his feelings, because he's suffering, because at this level, it's a very traumatic thing when you lose something, lose your material things, material values. And we feel these emotions of sufferings, of losing and buying things. And this is what is driving us insane. So we can definitely say that the Western civilized world has gone mad. It went mad a long time ago. And naturally, it gets accumulated. People get deceived, and all of them are preparing for the war to defend themselves. Cold war, hot wars, economical wars. Economic wars. So modern people, they cannot even find this peace inside of them. There's no internal peace. So this tendency of our development of our civilization is doomed. So now let's read the purport. By fulfilling the process of evolution from the aquatics to the animal platform, a living entity eventually reaches the human form. The three modes of material nature are always working in the evolutionary process. Those who come to the human form through the quality of sattva guna were cows in their last animal incarnation. So you see, brāhmaṇas, they used to be cows in the previous lives. So they've come into this human society through a cow form of life. So you see, to be a cow is not so bad. Those who come to the human form through the quality of Rajaguna were lions in their last animal incarnation. So that's a typical Rajaguna. So lion, the king of animals as we call him. So you see, everything, all its qualities are according to this Rajaguna. That's a typical Rajaguna. And those who come to the human form through the quality of Tamaguna were monkeys in their last animal reincarnation. In this age, those who come through the monkey species are considered by modern anthropologists like Darwin to be descendants of monkeys. We receive information herein that those who are simply interested in sex are actually no better than monkeys. Monkeys are very expert in sexual enjoyment, and sometimes sex glands are taken from monkeys and placed in the human body so that a human being can enjoy sex in old age. So you see, these glands are extremely active, and when biologists they try to examine the way they work, it's like a sexual machine or something. So monkeys can do like every several minutes. And the point is that they don't have any relationships between them. So they can do whatever they want. They can have sex even while eating. So that's the monkey's world. So they are always in this state. So you see, people transplant these glands into humans. So the point is that we're trying to pull ourselves together, but then when these sex glands are replaced, it simply excites your senses even more. So the nature gives us the opportunity to live normally, like until 20 years old of age, and then when you get old, you have like 20 years to fully forget about all these sexual desires. So the first part of life until you are 20, and then the last 20 years of your life. But the middle is connected with the sexual activity. But it's regulated, because otherwise you can go insane, you can go crazy. You can become monkey in terms of psychology. Sex, it also gives some soul to your personality development. And when there's too much lust, a person wants to take what doesn't belong to him. It all starts from fornication. Then it leads to killings and some other sins. So killings and suicides. So that's why a scorpion can kill itself. So these are the things that are to be examined by the scholars. So we have to search what it is exactly that kills this human society. But no one knows about it. No scholars, no politicians. No one knows how to control this sexual life, how to elevate this energy. For this purpose, Shrimad Bhagavatam is written. So many monkeys in India were caught and sent to Europe so that their sex glands could serve as replacements for those of old people. Those who actually descend from the monkeys are interested in expanding their aristocratic families through sex. Aristocratic in quotes. So one thing is when you reproduce, but the point is that these people, they do not even want to have any descendants. Because when you have some children, it is hard for you to survive. There's some competency. When there's some competition, it's not so easy to survive in this world. And there's a great difference right now between the rich and the poor. So they hate each other, these layers of society. So that's why in order to support your family in the age of Kali, it is hard to survive, and that's why people they make abortions. It is already a legal thing, and there's no other way out that people can find. In the Vedas there are also certain ceremonies especially meant for sexual improvement and promotion to higher planetary systems, where the demigods are enjoying sex. The sexual potency can be developed deeper to become even more subtle. On higher planetary systems, the demigods can enjoy it hundreds of times more. The demigods are also very much inclined toward sex, because that is the basic principle of mature enjoyment. So it's even... So in this physical world, it's about thinking as well. We'll have these desiring thoughts because we look at beautiful women all the time. We're gonna play with them. But the enjoyment itself, it's very temporary, very short-timed. But there at higher planets, it is much longer and deeper. So first of all, the conditioned soul is cheated by the so-called svāmīs, yogīs and incarnations when he approaches them to be relieved of material miseries. When the conditioned soul is not satisfied with them, he comes to devotees and pure brāhmaṇas, who try to elevate him for final liberation from material bondage. It's not only devotees, Prabhupada says, either Brahmins, Brahmanas or devotees. So Brahmana is the one who knows about soul. He can tell the truth. Probably he's not a devotee yet, he hasn't developed his relationships with God yet, but he's got this knowledge. And this is already the truth. Not only devotees. So you have to also underline it. Don't think that devotees know the truth, the spiritual truth. So there are some people having developed knowledge of the truth, they can preach too. This is the right thing as well. So that's when in ISKCON we have brāhmaṇas and some devotees that have relationships with God, they have a taste to devotional service. And there are some devotees who are involved in devotional service constantly. So that's why we have to become brāhmaṇas, not to deceive people. We have to have these qualities of brāhmaṇas. However, the unscrupulous, conditioned soul cannot rigidly follow the principles prohibiting illicit sex, intoxication, gambling, and meat eating. Thus, he falls down and takes shelter of people who are like monkeys. So when a person leaves Krishna's consciousness for different reasons, he cannot follow any prescriptions. Well, he'll be leading anyway in the people's society because, well, anyways, he's got some knowledge. So he will have some respect. So we have such an example. There was a woman practicing Krishna's consciousness for several years, and then she went to the Christian world, and she has become very popular there, very famous. But in Krishna consciousness, you know, she wasn't so much good. She wasn't even recommended for the initiation by the senior devotees, but then she finally received it. And after this, when she went to, she turned to Christianity. Before this, she had already read Bhagavad Gita, and she had been chanting Mahamantra. And then in Christianity, she looked very elevated among them. So the point is that you have to look very elevated in the eyes of the others. And you have to chant Mahamantra if you want to get elevated. So if you go through this complicated path of practicing yoga, some other things, you get elevated. Sometimes devotees, they look so simple. They don't have any glory in the society, right? They cannot fly. They do not demonstrate any super skills. So from this mundane aspect, perspective, these devotees, they have nothing special. But if I just can fly and just hand in the air or walk in the water, there will be thousands and millions of people watching you do it. So there will be some boats floating on water, and people will be paying no attention to that. They will be just looking at you. Glory. So here we're not glorified as great personalities. Here we're just the servants of our spiritual master, the servants of Krishna. So what glory is there? in here. In our understanding, in our culture, so the most elevated dream that we have is to reach this level, to consider ourselves to be the eternal servants of Kṛṣṇa, of our spiritual masters. This is our dream. But for the mundane people, it's not. Of course, when Acharya comes, just like Prabhupada, he looks the conqueror of the world. He shows people who God is through serving. So that's quite remarkable. So he gives you this taste, a touch of who Bhagavan is, but with the help of serving, with being devoted. So we have this Guru Tattva, this. He presents God, but he's in the position of a servant. See, in the Kṛṣṇa consciousness movement, these monkey disciples, being unable to follow the strict regulative principles, sometimes fall down and try to form societies based on sex. You see, there are also some examples. Well, Prabhupada doesn't give so many details here, but he does not actually judge the disciples that had left Krishna society, Krishna movement. He just says sometimes it happens. When they get no success in the spiritual life, they just leave this movement. But remember, in order to have this enjoyment in physical life, you need to work because you need to have some money. This is proof that such people are descendants of monkeys, as confirmed by Darwin. In this verse, it is therefore clearly stated, Yatha vanara jate. It's like a human in a monkey form. So what can I say here? So we come to the human society from different sources. So yeah, you can be born from monkey, or you can come here from the level of a lion, because this animal evolves, and also we can come down here from the body of a cow, through the experience that is called sattva guna. It's totally unconscious. So you have this peace of mind. So that's the most elevated guna. And these people, they are inclined to spiritual life, to self-realization. Lions are not inclined to that. So they have these strict orders in the pride's hierarchy. There's only one leader that controls all the rest. And then the lioness, it serves the lion. Females, they serve lions. Females serve males in the prides, the lion prides. And lioness is considered to be even more dangerous than a lion. Well, at least biologists, they say that. So lioness is a great hunter. Lion is just the enjoyer. Of course, he's got all this physical strength, but his position is king-like. So that's what sort of mind a person gets when he comes into this human form from that stage, from that level. And there are also some people born here through the level of, through the form of monkey. So monkey is very slick. It's very sly. And it's very considered. It's considered in our human society to be a great feature of your personality. Sly people, they attract people. They can prove anything. They can prove this theory and that one. They jump from mantra to another one, one spiritual practice to another one meditation, another meditation, change women. They come up with a lot of different theories all the time. They quarrel all the time. There are a lot of arguments, just like monkey. So that's how monkey establishes its authority in monkey society. When biologists have noticed that, they were very surprised. Because usually in other societies, in other herds, you have to be strong to fight back. If someone is aggressive. But in monkey society, they don't do that. So it's all about being hysterical. So one monkey, big one, comes out and it starts screaming, jumping, raising its hands up. And those who are afraid of it, they worship it. And then who's not afraid comes up on the stage and starts screaming as well. So that's how you do it. That's how they become leaders. Just become very emotional, become hysterical. That's all what our politicians do right now. They scream all the time. They argue, they call in each other some names. Then we tell them, no, just hold on a sec, give us some facts. And they say, what facts are you talking about? And they continue screaming. So that's the world that we're living in these days, monkey-like, animal-like. And there's another world, cow-like world, not prestigious at all, no one screaming there, very strange. Society that reads books, they're interested in truth, so there are very few people like that. So Prabhupada says that there are different disciples, because these people, they come from different stages, but still there are disciples. This way or another, they are all attached to Prabhupada. They remember that. So they want to get closer to Prabhupada. They want to understand what soul is. So when a person refers to God, a lot of things are forbidden. He starts re-evaluating his life. And people that have left Krishna's consciousness movement, we still hope that they will come back one day, because they've received some mercy about Lord Chaitanya, and hopefully these seeds will grow. Probably they'll come back and they start follow these main principles again. So I've seen a lot of people, a lot of devotees leave Krishna society, Krishna's movement. And once when I was in Mayapur, I was just walking down the street, chanting mantra. I saw one devotee, and suddenly I had this thought in my head, and I believed in it. No matter what kind of devotees we are in this life, with all our weaknesses and strength, we see these imperfections. In the next life, if they become into this life and into this Krishna's consciousness, they will become spiritual masters, because they've already received this mercy, and they will continue doing it in the next life. So they will come into this life specifically for spiritual practice, and they will be reinforced in this movement, because they will have this evolutionary growth. So even though they're monkey-like, they will get purified, either in this life or another one. They will get purified. Just by reading Srila Prabhupada's books, not even getting attached to ISKCON. Just read Prabhupada's books, even sometimes. So that what thoughts hit me. So I just didn't want to leave it in a negative state of mind, but personally I have a hope that this gift by Lord Chaitanya does not just go away. It stays there inside, and sooner or later it will elevate you. Okay, now let's discuss this topic together.
Спасибо.
So thank you.
А вот Chaitanya Chandra Charan prabhu, не знаете,
Chaitanya Chandra Charan
что здесь
prabhu,
имеет в виду Шрила Прабхупада и
when Srila Prabhupada
группа, которая объединяется
says about
вокруг,
unification
деятельность которых вращается вокруг секса.
of people that think only about sex,
И в самом деле, как утверждал
and their
Бхагаван,
behavior
это
proves that
да.
they are like descendants of monkeys.
Вот, и Шрила Прабхупада как бы подразумевает, что в ISKCON,
So Srila Prabhupada says that
такая
this
штука
probably even happens in ISKCON.
Вы не знаете?
Я встречал, не знаю, о чем Прабхупада точно.
So I don't know exactly what Prabhupada is talking about exactly,
О какой точно группе, но в моем опыте.
but what group of people he is talking about.
Да, была такая группа.
Judging by my experience, I remember
В России тоже такая группа есть.
such a
А
group,
есть сейчас, как бы,
and in
в
Russia
ISKCON,
as well.
конечно.
I think they probably
И в
still
Америке есть
exist,
такие
not in
группы,
ISKCON,
и в
of
ISKCON,
course,
они становятся майявади.
and also in the United States.
Вот
So they
они
become Mayavadi.
учатся, да, получают книги
So
Прабхупады,
they study,
практикуют, а потом
they examine
становятся майявади,
Srila
потому что
Prabhupada's
они
books,
соблюдают
and then they
принципы
become
философии.
Mayavadi because they do not follow
И они
the regulative
собираются в
principles.
сообщество, и там
So they
приходят к
form a
интересному выводу,
society, and then they come to a very interesting
что
conclusion,
для души не
philosophical conclusion,
существует
that for the soul
каких-то запретов,
there are no limits,
каких-то правил,
some
ограничений.
restrictions, some rules.
Вот, душа, она свободна. Давайте
Soul
жить
is free,
свободно.
so let's just live.
То есть, поскольку они
freely.
правила недоступны для них, они говорят, мы душа. То есть,
They understand that they are a soul.
Прабхупады, что я душа, и все в порядке.
You know, they've
Поэтому я могу жить
realized
свободно. Это для
this
неофитов, да,
truth.
вот какие-то правила, предписания, кто не
They
знает,
think
кто
that
душа. А мы
all
вот
these
знаем, что
restrictions
душа
and
может быть
rules
свободна. И всё сводится к тому, что
only
они
exist for the neophytes,
сексуальной жизнью.
but not for us.
Думают, что они освобожденные, как
And they think they consider themselves to
для
be
них это
liberated
духовная
souls,
практика.
and they can make sex as a
Некоторые
spiritual
майявади
practice.
тоже там говорят, рожнишь,
Some
там, да,
Mayavadis,
вот, использовал эти
they
вещи.
confirm it.
Некоторые такие направления были. И сейчас они до сих пор существуют в
And now
Америке, они
these
дают инициации каждый
trends,
месяц,
they
постоянно, чтобы настроение поднять. Вот у них нет
they still
ограничений
exist.
в сексуальной
They initiate each
жизни,
other almost
потому
every
что они
day
думают, что мы уже освобождены.
to improve the mood,
А если у тебя настроение не
so
очень,
they
то
think of
сейчас
themselves
и всё будет хорошо.
to be
А
liberated
завтра ты мне дашь
people.
То есть они вот какие-то такие вот
So they
такие
think
вещи
like, give me diksha today and tomorrow I'll
это
give
на основе
diksha
именно
to you.
сексуальной жизни.
But they live only based on the sexual life. This
Такие
madness.
группы, я не знаю конкретно, что Прабхупада имеет в виду в этом контексте.
I don't know what
но то, что я
Prabhupada
вот
exactly
слышал
means in
и
this
видел,
text, but
да,
I'm
есть.
just sharing with you what I've seen.
Спасибо. А в связи с этим следующий
So in
вопрос.
connection with this, I have a follow-up
Мы
question.
знаем, что Кали-югу,
We know that Kali Yuga,
бег скоростей очень быстро происходит.
in the age of high speed, that degradation
Даже на своем веку
happens very fast.
наблюдал то, что было
Even during my lifespan,
а,
I remember what it was like to live here 30 years ago.
считалось аморальным,
Things that were
непозволительным.
forbidden and immoral back then now becomes a norm.
Как-то вот некоторые странные вещи становятся
Some very strange things become a
допустимым.
norm.
И вот дальше, в связи с этим, как если возьмем наш ISKCON, поскольку Шрила Прабхупада, как
Even
мы
if we
знаем,
take
говорит
ISKCON
о
now,
брахманах,
since
общаться
Srila Prabhupada
с чистыми преданными,
speaks about brāhmaṇas and the importance of association with the
в нашем
brāhmanas,
ISKCON
so lately I've seen
говорят о том, что
that in ISKCON,
Шрила Прабхупада
they say that Srila Prabhupada,
делаем акцент на брахманических стандартах. И
when
что мы не
he left,
учитываем
so we put an accent on
известные или другие
some
бабы,
grammatical aspects,
природы людей,
and that we do not take into account the nature of people, their natural inclinations. So here we mention as lions and monkeys and cows. So there are some devotees that have this kshatra's nature, or brahmanical nature, or shūdras, and you cannot treat everyone equally because we're all different. So this I'm kshatriya, and I can allow myself to do different things. I can have many wives, for example. And I think that on one hand, I understand that yes, we are not all equal, we are all different. We have different inclinations and personalities, but at the same time, just like I said before, in Kali Yuga, what used to be immoral now becomes a norm. So how do you think, how are we supposed to keep this purity, this brahmanical purity, the Vaishnava's culture, all our traditions, and at this, to give an opportunity to others to practice, no matter where they are? So that's a good question, Chandra Prabhu. Let's try to understand. Yeah, there are devotees with different gunas, and they all have their own standards, their own opportunities, and we all have these different skills and capabilities. So let's find out, try to understand the real values that we appreciate. To follow some principle or examining the literature. So what is the main principle that we follow? I think that this main criteria is the devotedness. If a person is devoted, even that he cannot do something, it's not a problem. But if he cannot do something and he leaves this movement, then he becomes monkey-like. It means that he wasn't devoted enough. So there was one person serving to Prabhupada. So there was some service. So Prabhupada wanted to engage him in some service. But Prabhupada's disciples said that this person wasn't following these regulative principles in his family. But Prabhupada says that we do not reject people having sexual life if he's a devotee. We do not reject this person. So if he's got too much passion, he won't be able to follow celibacy. So he might have some negative consequences. But when he gets married, he's got his wife and children, he gets engaged in his service. He starts serving to his family. It's like an austerity, supporting his grihastha ashram. He's got some new responsibilities, and that's a good thing. The problem is in not what person can or cannot. The point is that how much he's devoted. If he's devoted, he stays. He remains in this movement. Even if he's mopping the floors, as long as he's a devotee, that's fine. But if he's got some other concepts, like chasing glory, popularity, and if he cannot follow these principles, how can he become an important person? It's impossible. So then he tries to solve this question in another way. But if a person is a devotee, he will not go anywhere. He will not leave this movement. So that's the major value. But again, there are some devotees that leave this movement and remain devotees at the same time. So during Prabhupada's times, when his disciples used to leave this Krishna's consciousness, he was still waiting for them to be back. So this thing is very deep to understand how much you are devoted. Prabhupada says that sometimes a person does not even know he's devoted, because there's an illusion. Only Krishna can remove this illusion, and also Guru. If you serve Guru, if you follow his regulations, so try to do it. So Guru can protect you from the illusion. And if he does listen very carefully, and he tries his best to serve his Guru, Guru will give you this protection. So this question is very subtle. So if I understood it right, if a person is devotee, he's not reject some high standards, even if he's not capable to follow all these principles very strictly. That's when he's got a chance to elevate himself. But if some desires penetrate his mind, so he might cross this dangerous line So it turns out that those who are the carriers of these high standards, so they have to be very compassionate. By no means are they supposed to show some negative features. They just have to be compassionate, to demonstrate some mercy. And by no means are they supposed to go for compromise, to have some compromises. Yes, this is the major purpose. So we have to differentiate, we have to learn to differentiate devotees from non-devotees. So devotees, they have this feeling, if we want to do something good, so we always present it for other devotees to be checked. And the devotees, they will always evaluate what I do, evaluate all my actions, because they feel this criteria. So we have to not only follow these regulative principles, but also we see how much this devotee is really devoted. This is the major thing. Sometimes we see a lot of these weaknesses, like he cannot do this and that. So why do we talk only about these aspects? Take a look at the way he's serving. Why did you forget about the way he serves? So do not forget about this. Sometimes we only think about regulations, but we forget about the major things. It's like regulations for the regulations, for the sake of regulations. But the point is that you have to be devoted. Bhakti. We all do for this. We do everything for this. Thank you. So Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please accept my obeisances. So those who are watching us on YouTube, send your questions in our Telegram bot and we'll try to read them all. Those who are in Zoom, please raise your hand and we'll give you an opportunity to ask a question.
Пока у нас нет поднятых рук, наверное, я начну. Карабаджан прабhu, если вы не хотите еще что-то дополнить.
Да, пожалуйста.
So if you don't mind, I will start.
Спасибо большое за лекцию.
Thank you very much for the lecture, Chaitanya Chandra Charan prabhu.
Животрепещущую для меня тему затронули.
So I think it's a very
Тема искусства, в частности, на
important
литературу
topic that
и
you
мне
touched
правы
upon today, especially for me.
То есть я не говорю сейчас про поп-культуру, да, про музыку, которая
So now I'm not even talking about this culture of music, like pop culture,
серьезную литературу по классику, да, про
but about some
людей, там,
literature, just like classical literature, for example.
отношений, вот этих чувств, эмоций.
So these relationships and emotions. In connection with this, I have a
Какова ценность,
question
реальная ценность
that tortures me.
такого искусства, которое
So what's the value
проходит красная линия, да,
of an
через вот эти
art,
отношения? И каков критерий
of a
настоящего
mundane
искусства,
art, and what's the
по-вашему
criterion
мнению?
of an
И
of
что
a,
вы, как преданные,
real
вот на этом фронте
art, and we
можете
as
сейчас
devotees,
сделать, что вы
what
можете
can we do?
создавать, ну, на примере,
What
допустим, литературы,
can we
чтобы,
create
с одной стороны, это не
based on
было
an example of a
навязчиво
literature, for
религиозным
example,
у людей, да, но с
so
другой
that
стороны
on the one hand it's not
осознанию каким-то
it's not so
такое желание задавать
let's say
вопросы,
repellent to mundane people and stays attractive to them.
Но искусство — это способ или метод
So look, the art is a method
дать почувствовать
to
то,
give
что человек не может
the
почувствовать,
feeling to people
недоступное.
that they cannot feel, something that is inaccessible, unattainable for them.
Искусство — это способ поднять
The art
сознание
is a
в более
method to
высокое
elevate
измерение
your consciousness
эмоций,
to a higher
переживаний,
dimension.
как театр, допустим, да, вот
Just
когда
like
мы
a
люди
theater.
представим в театре, люди могут почувствовать, увидеть Бога буквально, и почувствовать его.
So when people are in a theater, they can literally feel God.
Преданные, вот они что-то придумывают, да, хотят в творчестве что-то придумывать
So you
новое.
see, when devotees they
Ставят вот лилы
invent
Господа
something,
и Кришны понятным языком. Там
they
уже
try to
есть
demonstrate
разные
lilas of
искусства,
either Lord
основа
Chaitanya or
конкретное,
Krishna.
описанное ачарьями. Нужно просто это вот перевести в искусство.
So everything that's written down, you just have to transform it into art, and people will feel it.
Произойти мощно, когда люди почувствуют.
So when people feel it, this will be such a great thing. It's just people might not feel instantly because they still have these mundane habits, but still there are a lot of examples of people that were recognized only after their death. Just like Van Gogh, some other artists, Mayakovsky, the Russian poet, he wasn't recognized when he was alive. But then suddenly we felt this taste. And here is the same thing. So you can connect all this, you can combine these things. And if we start transferring this rasa, we can turn the whole world upside down. You might have this ecstasy when we see these plays on the stage, because this pure rasa is manifested there. So why do devotees avoid these things? Of course, I'm not against some plays that devotees come up with, so it's just the problem is that sometimes devotees in just one play they try to show the whole philosophy in just one play. But you know, the whole Bible is giving you so many examples just to give you an understanding of what humbleness is. Sometimes we just want to show the whole philosophy in just one play. The point is that we just have to do it very gradually. So when I first tasted prasadam, I thought that that I got purified instantly. And then I was told that I had to eat it every day. And I thought to myself, wow, just as a prasadam, now I'm a pure person. And then devotees told me that you have to eat it every day, actually. So you see, for an ordinary person, this one little grain is enough. And you think like you are purified already. You have these emotions. So for example, when people die, we cry, even the swans. They cry when some species die. So we just have to get used to these pure senses, when there's no sexual agitation. It's a great art. But you see, we've already felt it. Not only we. So back in time, there was a Ramayana. It was staged, in a classical style, all these costumes and music. Topic was classical. No interpretations. New people even came. They fell in love in Ramachandra instantly, right away. So they went behind the curtains, hugging this actress wearing the costume of Ramachandra. You see, everything was like Vedic clothing, and everything was according to the standards, you see. That was just fantastic. Such a great rasa was manifested. Sometimes when we stage something, it doesn't look so appealing, because we try to copy everything from the Western world. The point is that the real culture in there, in these classics. Of course, we can use something, using technologies from West, like electronic music or something. So the way they behave on the stage, the way they represent themselves, because you see, they feel gods. They can play demons very well in West. But my proposal is about not just to stage something that we create, but do something that has been already written. The stage classics. Just to give people the feeling of God. Vrajamani Prabhu? Hare Kṛṣṇa, please accept my obeisances. So I wanted to go back to the very beginning. So we were talking about being devoted and all these rules and regulations. So at the same time, we have some measures to get initiated, for example, and so on. And it turns out we have some measurements. So we said that we will initiate you, and at the same time we'll have some regulations. Interesting thing, turns out. So some people say, why do you get initiated so early? Some people say that, why don't you get initiation? Sometimes these things happen. Can you comment on that, please? Yes, it's a complicated question, because Prabhupada used to say, initiation is a risk. When you accept students, you risk, because it is very hard to see. So there was one episode in our practice that really shocked us. So some devotees accepted one spiritual master. One of the disciples. So in the temple, he was just the perfect brahmachari. He was doing so many things, so responsive. He was a perfect devotee. We recommended him for initiation. He got initiation and he just vanquished. He disappeared. He said that he had his own business to do. So he said, no, I have something else to do. So do not intrude into my life. So then I couldn't just look in the eyes of my spiritual master. So I came to him and I didn't know what to say, because we were the ones who have recommended him. But the spiritual master says, you know, it happens. And then I told to my spiritual master, maybe this devotee will come back? And my spiritual master said, yeah, he might. You see, we all chant Maha Mantra, but it is so hard to understand the way he chants this mantra inside of his heart. It is very difficult to see, it's a complicated question. So every time spiritual master accepts some disciples, it's always a risk. It gives a chance to every potential disciple. So he gives a chance to everyone trying. So that's why we have these regulations. But there's always a risk. Either this disciple will stay in the movement or he will not. So that's why we follow some rules and laws, but we cannot control all the rest of the things. So there's always a risk. Just like Narada Muni said. Even Narada Muni cannot judge who is the real devotee, who is not. Because you can commit aparadha unconsciously. So Nityananda is still not accepted by some devotees because there were no regulations. In our movement, we all have a great chance, but this chance is just a chance. The one not having a hope for the devotional service will not stand against it, will not stand against the illusion. Not only do you have to be decisive, we have to have a great hope for the mission of Lord Chaitanya. We have to keep it in our hearts, and if you're ready to wait for the millions of years, you will have the mercy of Lord Chaitanya. So I just wanted to add a little bit. So when Prabhupada asked one of his disciples about the regulative principles about chanting Maha Mantra, so you see, back in the 90s, the standards were different. So maybe with time, these standards will become even more strict than now. So these measurements So probably, on the one hand, we want to demonstrate the following of these four regulative principles, but now we see these standards are different. So now we have to spend a lot of time to get pranama mantra and then to get initiated. So maybe in 20 years, this will take even more time than now. See, as a rule, every civilization becomes autocratic, more strict. Well, it starts with a democracy, but finishes in autocracy, in the material sense. But in the spiritual sense, when Prabhupada said that there are four regulative principles, 16 chants, and give him this initiation, so sometimes he did it just to see the way it was going to work. Like his first year in the Western world. You see, in the Western world, there is no culture. In India, if you accept Guru, it's like getting married. If you marry someone, there is no divorce. In the West, you can either accept Guru and then reject him. There is no culture. So he was basing not on the rules. The rules, they do not work there. Relationships. When Prabhupada said that disciples were attached to him, that's when he initiated them. You see, in the very beginning, his disciples, they didn't even know that they had to bow him. They did it spontaneously the first times. So in Prabhupada Lilamrita, it is described. So when they started spreading Lord Chaitanya's books, and for Prabhupada it was such a significant event in his movement, in his life, that they bought a printing machine in the basement and they started typing, printing journals. So when they were engaged in doing that, so Prabhupada, he went down to this basement, to this workshop, and when everyone saw him, they just took a bow. Because they felt an inflow of power. And then Prabhupada said that, that's a rule actually. So when they were printing these things, he said, no, don't get distracted. But then he said that it's a rule, that every time you see your spiritual master, you have to take a bow. It's just because they got attached to him very much. They fell in love with him. And sometimes he initiated some disciples just to see either it was going to work out. So sometimes spiritual master has to see this internal energy to understand if this disciple is deserving you. Sometimes it's just a stick and a discipline. But if you have this internal energy, people will just listen to you. They want these things. They say, we want to serve our spiritual master. My spiritual master does not make me do anything. Even when I came to him asking what I was supposed to do, he said, what do you want to do? I said, I do some preaching. He said, okay, continue doing that. So I want to do it, and I want my guru to be satisfied with me. I just continue doing what I'm doing. If they don't want to, if your disciples do not want to do anything, why do you need these disciples? But if there are too many disciples and Guru physically is unable to pay attention to all of them. So we have senior disciples for that. But I don't know if these rules will become even more strict. So it's sometimes a devotee has to repeat pranam mantra for 5 years, sometimes it's longer or shorter period of time. So Prabhupada was expecting his disciples to develop brahmanical qualities in just 6 months. But if we are given 5 years and we cannot develop these brahmanical qualities, so what's the sense of doing it? So Prabhupada said only 6 months. So this is what Prabhupada said. But you see, now we have these 5 or 6 years. We'll understand that some of them, some of our spiritual masters, they say, yeah, I cannot take any disciples anymore. I'm totally overloaded. That's why we are trying to work on the standards. So now we're coming back to Prabhupada again. And then we're trying to come up with some new standards. Yeah, so this topic is quite big. And I think I'll ask some more questions next time. Radha Krishna Maharaji. Hare Krishna, please accept my obeisances. Very interesting information, and dear devotees, thank you for the questions, they're very interesting. So I have a question. If we're talking about the main criterion of being devoted, we are all at different levels, and each level has its own criterion of devotedness, probably, its own understanding. So at every stage there's like a limit that we have to overcome, some kind of a age crisis in spiritual development. At the level of sadhu sangha, we just have to take up some responsibility. So we have to express some consciousness, to evaluate ourselves accordingly. At every stage, there's some development happening, and when you track it back, you understand that these different stages in the life of a devotee. So what is the criterion helping a devotee to move from one level to another? Sometimes I get these answers, but I'm not sure if they're correct. So what is it that allows you to get from one level to another one? Hare Krishna. Realization of the values. It helps you to transfer from one stage to another. And when you de-evaluate something, it stops you. So for example, there's an enthusiast devotee, beginning level devotee. He does not know much information yet, but that's a realization of some values for him at this stage. He feels very well. You know, imagine an old devotee coming up to him saying that, you know, we'll go away, this is just Maya. And he de-evaluates everything, and that's it. So this young devotee, he starts worrying. So you have to keep these values up, because for him at this stage, all this is very precious and important. You know, for some people it's very important to follow Kadashis, like dry fasting. And if it's precious for him, you just have to support him.
Не то, что все едят в Экадыше, когда начинает пир, начинаем сразу все рушить другими цитатами, понимаете, это его ценность.
It's not like we tell him, like, you know, everyone eats in the Kadishes and do this and that. You just have to give him some support.
Вот такая песня может быть, видите. Но вот у детей тоже есть свои ценности. Оно говорит,
You know, children, they also have some values.
но так мы убиваем личность.
You know, we tell them, throw all these toys away, stop playing. With the evil, yeah, these things. And when we support him, he grows, and he understands that there are some higher values.
Искусственное только вот правило предписания. Искусственно, значит, 50 лет вы напрасно. Так бывает? Но мне ровно сегодня у меня сегодня день рождения 50 лет. Значит, вы напрасно.
So, for example, to them, 50 and Varnaprastha is happening tomorrow. This is an art.
20 лет. Там написано,
And say, I'm 20 years of age, and in the book it says that I have to get married. But this is an art. Sometimes we have to just support these values in each other. They may be different, but still there are values. And we have to support these values, not to break them. Someone is at the level of Shraddha, and this is precious. Someone is at Sadhu Sangha level. This is precious as well. Someone is at the level of Ruchi and Prema. Someone says Shraddha and Sadhu Sangha. What about Prema? He'll say, what are you thinking of? Have you forgotten Kṛṣṇa? So he will just stop this process. He will stop the evolution of his soul. See, we do not kill animals. Materialists kill, but we don't. So that's precious for this soul to be in this life form, and we should not intrude. We should not commit any violence. Does it refer to the question you've asked? Yeah, thank you so much. So we keep these values in Sadhu Sangha. So Prabhupada supports it, your guru supports it, and your mentors, they also have to support it. Thank you very much. Giridhari Prabhu. Hare Krishna, Chaitanya Chandra Charan prabhu, dear devotees, thank you all. I've heard a lot of important things today, especially for the young devotees. You've uncovered this important information, especially about the fourth principle. When we started practicing, everything was very strict. If we understood that someone wasn't following all these principles, regulations, we practically rejected such a devotee. And now there are some devotees that cannot follow these principles, but still they have some level of devotedness, and they are attached to the devotional service. That's why all you said is very important, because I remember myself, when I first got the books and I've heard about these regulations, I closed this book instantly and I said that it's not for me, these standards are too high. So it was unbelievably hard for me to not violate these regulations. So the first time it is really difficult. But then when you start chanting Maha Mantra, you understand that Kṛṣṇa gives you His mercy and He helps you. And another thing, I liked it very much when you said that those devotees that have left our movement, so they still have a possibility of being born in the next life and even become spiritual masters, because they will start off from the level they had left before. So I wanted to ask you, probably you know about it. I've heard that there's some principle on one farm so they take a vow to live there for 10,000 lives, to live on that farm. So I wanted to ask you if it's true. Well, Shvara Maharaj, he started even putting some imprints on their foreheads, confirm that they are the part of this society. You see, he started this project, and it demands a lot of strength, a lot of energy. You see, for him, it's like a Vrindavan. This farm that he lives at, he feels the emanation of Vrindavan. He even describes some places being copies of Vrindavana. So places that he describes in his book, he says that in his perception, everything is present there. That's why he wants to leave this inheritance to his disciples. That's what he's trying to establish. It's just when devotees say that, I just live this life, and that's it. So it doesn't matter where to live. They become a little egoistic. So they have to think about the next generations. They just forget about it. That's why he says to them that you have to live there for 10,000 of lives. So when you die, you get reborn, you come back here again. That's the way I look at it, at this angle.
Это вот Швара Махараш как бы наставление такое дает, а другой вариант, если у человека самого он понимает, что он не может до конца.
But if a person understands that even being a devotee and he still has a desire to get reborn at exactly the same place and continue his serving, even materialists say that, even if they don't know if they have the next life, so even materialists say that, even they're not sure, if they're not sure if they get reborn, sometimes they want to get back to the same place. Nitai Mangala Prabhu. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Please accept my obeisances, dear Gurudev. Thank you so much for these ecstatic instructions. So I just wanted to follow up the question of Victor Prabhu about the art. So you said that we lack, like, there's not enough plays that we stage. Should we just perform for non-devotees and come up with more theatrical plays for non-devotees about Lord Chaitanya, for example? Because it has touched me. So we're supposed to write these scripts not only for devotees but for the non-devotees as well.
Для преданных точно не хватает, потому что они смотрят кармические фильмы.
Well, you see, devotees, they
Точно.
watch
То есть уже
karmic movies. That's why they lack
что
these
хотелось рассматривать временами, знаете,
real
вспоминать,
stories.
обсуждать. Вот. Конечно, с другой стороны, я понимаю, это тяжелая работа.
On the other hand, I understand that it is a hard work.
Полностью создать физический театр.
You cannot,
То есть его
I mean,
даже с материальной точки
it's
зрения
very difficult to create a Vedic theater.
навыков нет.
We don't have these
Усвоена культура.
skills and we don't have this
Мы еще
culture.
не совсем понимаем эту бхаву, это
We don't yet
настроение,
understand
которое
this
делается.
bhava, this
Вот,
mindset.
это немножко выглядит искусственно, как на корове седло.
So it looks a little bit artificial.
Вот корова пасется, представьте, и на нее седло. Вот если
So if you
как-
put a saddle on a cow,
вот это то, что нас
right, it
отличает,
looks a little bit
потому что мы, другие
strange,
люди, мы из другого теста
because we are
делаем,
different. We're made of
другая.
other material.
Нам нужно изучать
So that's why we have to
культуру одежды
examine this culture
на сцене, да,
of
вот
clothing
костюмы.
on a
Это
stage,
большая,
these
как по мне,
costumes.
сложная работа. Это нужны пошивочные мастерские.
And it's a great
Это
and
нужно много
difficult
фотографий
job.
делать,
So we have to have some workshops,
один к одному, знаете, это
you know, to
серьезно.
come up with these
Поэтому технически это
decorations.
трудный вопрос.
So technically it's a very
К тому
difficult
же еще создать
thing.
команду, которая бы
And at the same time we have to
нужно освободить их от деятельности,
create
да.
a group of people, a team that will get paid.
Вот, и тем не менее,
It
нам
looks
очень не
impossible now.
хватает
But at the same time,
классического театра.
there's really not enough of this classical theater.
Это делает, пытается, сочетает там, можно видеть это в Майяпуре, он каждый год в Майяпуре.
So in Mayapur there's one Maharaj, he comes up with some theatrical play with every year, some classical plays about Dhruvi Maharaj and all these episodes from
Они ставят, захватывающие. Такие небольшие, вот там полчаса там постановки.
sometimes they can just last for 30
Так
minutes.
что есть какие-то вот попытки театра, вот он существует.
So there are some attempts.
Давно существует, он работает над этим.
So there's a theater in there.
Вот это вот один успешный такой пример, где Махарадж
So there's one
занимается этим.
successful example.
Я все вспоминаю Калакшетру в Индии, где
I keep remembering Kṛṣṇa in India that I've lived 6 months in.
Калакшетра это основала Рукмини Деви.
So Rukmini Devi established Kṛṣṇa. It's a school, it still exists.
Театр Бхаратнатьям.
It's a classical theater.
Там изучают санскрит, философию,
So they learn Sanskrit, the philosophy.
Там многому учатся.
It's a school, they learn a lot of subjects in there.
Пению, все эти раги изучают, потом все эти атрибуты одежды,
So singing all the attributes of clothing,
классические украшения, все
this
знают.
classical
Вот то, что мы увидели там, это превзошло все наши
decorations.
ожидания.
So what we saw
Я
there,
до сих пор не могу ни с чем рядом поставить никакие
we were
взгляды
totally
на
impressed.
искусство.
I cannot compare anything
Да,
to
по
what I've seen.
глубине передачи вот эмоций.
In terms of the
Ничего
depth
невозможно. Я
of
тогда
expressing the
говорю,
emotions.
пожалуйста, те, кто занимается творчеством, театром, поезжайте в Калакшетру, посмотрите там вот.
So those who are engaged in
каждый год.
acting, go to
И там где-то в
this
течение
place.
недели каждый день идут постановки открытые в театре.
So you will
Потому что это Рамайна,
experience it, you will see it.
сцены из Шримад Бхагаватам,
This
сюжеты,
Ramayana and
как
Shrimad
это
Bhagavatam,
И посмотрите язык, способ, как они это делают.
and
Вы
take a
можете
look
почувствовать
at
всё, что
how they do it,
происходит. Без слов. Это просто танец.
without any words, just to
Это
dance,
просто танец и игра.
just to dance, just
Игра и
acting,
классические способы выражения.
classical ways of
Ничего такого, казалось бы, нет.
expression.
Как не показали черная маска.
It seems like there's no special.
Это по какому-то там вот европейскому
There was only one
писателю
theater play
передали.
called
Так,
Black
в
Mask,
европейском стиле.
based on some Western writer.
Без
It was also very powerful, without any
слов.
words.
Танец, игра, все понятно.
Dance, acting, everything is
Ну, то
clear.
есть словами, похоже, это сложно передать.
Because it seems like it is very hard to express using just words.
3 часов вы сидите, там перед вами живой оркестр.
Live
Ни
music
одной ошибки, ни одного
is
срыва.
also there
Они гениальны эти все
for
музыки.
3 hours in a row. It's a
Я
genius
поражался
thing.
на каждом шагу, их учил.
I was so
Но
impressed.
там один актер всю жизнь играет одну роль.
And there was one actor
Ему других ролей не
who's
дают.
been playing one role for his whole
И
life.
он уже старик.
So
Его
he's
все
been playing
помнят
Ramachandra.
Рамачандрой. И никого другого не хотят.
So
понимаете?
everyone remembers him
Это
to be
видно
Ramachandra.
по свету.
When I saw Sita there, so she's still, that image is still in my mind. Just the image, it has entered my mind. I've seen Sita there. So the actors, they changed, but still I haven't seen Sita in those actors' faces. So after the first impression that I got, since that time I haven't seen it in the face of Sita. But there are some actors that play the same role for so many years. So there was a TV series about Jesus Christ, Italian producer, about Jesus Christ's life, depicting his life. And this producer, he has paid this actor $1 million to guarantee that this actor will not play in any other movies. So that's the art. But if it's Western, it's all artificial. But if you want to feel this depth, you have to learn, you have to examine Vedic culture. All these mudras, all these movements, they learn everything, they know how to express it, and they start feeling it. So the way Hindus do it, Western people do not feel it, even devotees. All these theatrical plays that we did on Kṛṣṇa's Leelas, they've become rude. We didn't have enough, we lacked spirit to hold it. So when gopis communicate with Kṛṣṇa freely, Western people, they don't actually understand it. They become, they perceive it rude and vulgar. So art should examine rasa, otherwise every material theater becomes like a public house. All these actors and musical performers, they get perverted. You need midhunya. When you love someone, you sing. When you're not in love anymore, you stop singing because you need to have another love. That's why they do this, they have these plastic surgeries. But we have to learn this Vedic culture in order to elevate this state of mind. This is a serious work. So it turns out, in order to express the true mood of Lord Chaitanya, we should be authentical, not using Russian dramatic skills. Well, it's not that it's not going to work out, you just have to enrich your knowledge. We're already successful in many things, we just have to examine. It's just we are not supposed to lose the interest to the classics. We just have to re-liven it. So Kṛṣṇa prabhu has just left. So I wanted to ask how much time we still have. It's okay, just a few of them. A few questions.
Можно?
Я хотела спросить Chaitanya Chandra Charan prabhu. Вот если я хочу распространять книги,
See, if
то
I want to
я
spread
знаю, с чего начать.
books, I don't
Вечером
even know
прихожу с
what to
работы
start
и
with.
пыталась прочитать
Sometimes I
книгу,
just
но
walking
у
back
меня ничего не
home
получается.
from my
И
working
я хотела
place,
спросить,
and
можно ли
I
это
wanted to
делать, или
spread
это
some
делают
books.
только в декабре в марафон листопада. И у меня есть второй вопрос, он хуже, чем
But it
первый.
didn't work out.
Я, может,
Первый вопрос у тебя потрясающий вообще, знаешь, я так
So I
рад,
wanted
что
to
я
ask
вижу,
if I
что
just
кто-то хочет книги
should spread
распространять
books in
полгода.
December
Все мы эти
and not every day.
благословения, пожалуйста.
See, this
Для
question
того,
is
чтобы
just
это делать,
perfect.
нужно иметь книги.
If
Бери
you
себе
want to
книг
spread
в
books, you
комнату,
just have to have
где
books,
ты живешь.
and that's it.
Заполни всю комнату, чтобы негде было лечь.
So buy as many
А чтобы
books,
лечь, нужно распространить сначала книги. Вот
so you
так.
could fill your
Дальше.
whole room with
Вот
books,
просто
and then
бери
start
книги,
spreading
покупай
them.
книги.
So just buy
Книги
books,
постоянно будут напоминать. Вот мы здесь,
and they will be
здесь.
always reminding you about
И вот у тебя
themselves,
есть желание, и тебе
saying
Кришна
that we are
хочет помочь.
here, and that when you have this
Просто
desire,
какая
Krishna will
книга?
help you.
Лучше выйди с кем-то, кто уже распространяет книги, опыт имеет. Вместе
Uh,
с улицы выйти,
It would be a better
гулять,
idea
пораспространять.
to come out
Одной
with
я не
someone
советую ходить по улице книги распространять.
that already
Мало
has
что
got
бывает.
some experience in it, and I don't advise you to spread these books alone
хорошо, спасибо вам
in
большое.
case something
Я
might
поняла.
happen. Okay, thank you so much.
Ну, насчет второго вопроса я хотела спросить. Просто если я в невыгодном положении среди преданных в ятре, ну, по возрасту, по положению,
So there's another one. If
тем веркам, и я
my
очень
position is not so strong, if
я хотела спросить,
in
можно
the
ли ставить
society of devotees,
даты,
if I'm not too, if I'm
потом
young,
строить программы
too young,
и потом
Что за
продолжить.
невыгодное положение?
what kind of an unbeneficial position you're talking about?
Что?
Что я младше по возрасту,
Because I'm
по
younger.
положению.
Это как раз выгодное положение.
By my position, but you see, this is actually a beneficial position because everything is ahead of you.
Больше шансов, чем у других.
You have more chances than the others. You'll show them. Just wait.
Пока еще, подожди.
You'll show them all.
Спасибо.
Okay, thank you so much.
Да, Враджамани Прабhu?
Харе Кришна.
Vajramani
Я что-то
Prabhu?
не удержался после ответа Chaitanya Chandra Charan prabhu.
So couldn't
Заполнить комнату книгами.
control myself when
Мы
I heard about
так
filling my room
мы
with books.
упали в таком сжатом состоянии, сидя.
So I remember these episodes in my life when we
Нас несколько
when we
человек
literally filled our rooms
места
with
не было,
books.
там мы четвером
That there
пошли
was no
спать.
place left even for sleeping there.
И вот мы именно с таким энтузиазмом распространяли.
So we were so enthusiastic.
Чуть больше места было, ну сидя, 2-3 ночи, 4 ночи мы сидя спали.
And then we used to even sleep in a sitting position.
Трое сидя спали, потом двое сидя спали, и потом только 4 могли уже спать.
So it was like
То, что вы рассказали, это прям у нас...
two persons could sleep in a sitting position, then three, and only then four of us could sleep, but just in a sleeping position because there were too many books in our
Надо
rooms.
написать эту историю, века публиковать.
I think you have to publish this story.
Можно зачитывать вопросы, да?
Can I read the questions out loud?
Первый вопрос. Харе Кришна, является ли формой зависти
Hare Krishna.
осуждение людей, которые находятся под влиянием Митхуня Бхава?
Is the form of jealousy
Это может быть так, если мы осуждаем.
when you judge some people.
А осуждать,
Is being jealousy
мы сожалеем, что
a
это
form of
так.
judgment?
Сожалеть, если так, более духовно посмотреть на это. А осуждать, ну как? Потому
Well,
что у них
yes,
другого
and
выхода у людей.
when you judge people,
А они попали в такую ситуацию.
you have to understand that it's just a situation that these people have, and they have no
Как раз вот
other way out
подходит.
of this situation.
Они невинны в этом смысле
You
люди.
cannot judge them because,
Порабощены, да, и-
in this sense,
Но просто нужно людям разъяснять.
there's no
рассказывать.
blame on them.
Осуждаются, знаете, негодяи, которые вот не хотят.
You can
знать,
judge rascals
не знают и знать не хотят, и других привлекают к греху.
that do not
Распространяют
wanna
грех, то есть
have this
сознательно
knowledge, and they attract other people.
Глупые ослы, так их называют, упрямые.
Like,
А невинные люди, да, их не нужно осуждать.
like silly donkeys, you can say, but
Спасибо.
if there's
Следующий
nothing to
вопрос.
blame these people, don't
Талмудой
judge them.
строят крематорий. Вопрос. Если тело ушедшего человека кремируют без его согласия, он все равно не будет привязан к нему.
So if when the person dies and you take his body to crematory without his
Придется уходить.
even knowing that,
Придется уходить. Тела-то нет.
will he
Летает
still leave this
телом
body?
над грубым телом какое-то время, бывает долгое время.
Well, sometimes this subtle body it's floating above the physical body for some time because of the attachment.
Поэтому, когда кремируют,
That's why
душа в тонком теле видит, тела больше нет.
when you're taken to a crematorium, a subtle body soul sees that there's no physical body anymore, and it leaves it.
Спасибо. Почему женщинам и детям не рекомендуют ходить на могилы?
Why is it not suggested for women and children to visit
Разные.
cemetery? Well, there are different reasons. First, when your body is in a crematorium,
Просто на берегу реки священной там есть.
they do, remember in India, they do it in the banks of a river.
Варга-двар есть на Джаганатхапури, недалеко от океана.
For example, in Jagannath
Место
Puri,
сожжения,
there's a special place to cremate your body.
Туда приходят, конечно же, родственники.
So, of course, some relatives come there of this dead person.
Запрещают шастры женщинам смотреть кремацию.
But it's forbidden for women to
Это для них тяжелая
watch
самскара, и
this
не
cremation.
рекомендовано женщинам
it's a hard samskara for them, and it's not recommended for them,
беременным, ну, вообще, как
especially the
женщинам,
pregnant
матерям,
ones, and the future mothers, of
это
course,
плохая
too.
самскара, тяжелая
That's a bad samskara.
Мужчины могут смотреть.
Men, they
Поэтому,
can watch it.
такое делают ширму из ткани.
So there's like a canvas,
Из этой ширмы женщины
created,
сидят,
and
участвуют
the
в кремации, но за ширмой.
women there are sitting behind this
Они
canvas.
называют святые имена, обычно там
They chant holy names usually.
оплакивают ушедшего человека.
They cry over the dead,
Наблюдают. Поэтому
person,
кладбище это тоже для женщин, это, ну,
but they do
тяжелая
not watch him.
самскара.
So cemetery is a difficult samskara.
Де-
It's a
дети
hard
и там
samskara,
также нечистое место.
as well as for the children. It's not a pure place,
Чистая
not a
могила
clean
это
place.
самадхи, когда тело святого захоранивают.
Only
Но
samadhi
кремировать это
is a
захоранивать,
pure
это
tomb.
самадхи, это просветляет.
This can enlighten you. This enlightens your
А
mind
обычное
and soul and
кладбище это
senses.
нечистое место, там
But a usual
духи
cemetery
находятся в этой теле.
is not a clean place. There might be some
Приятно.
spirits of dead people, and it's not very beneficial.
Спасибо.
It's not
Чайтанья
favorable.
Чандра Прабху, у нас еще 5 вопросов
Thank you.
есть, поэтому вы, пожалуйста, меня остановите там, где вам будет удобно по времени. Следующий вопрос.
So we'll still have
Когда
5
преданные
questions to
поздравляют
stop
друг
me.
друга с 8 марта,
Just
23
need it.
февраля, как это делать с правильным пониманием, чтобы поздравление не сводилось к телесной концепции?
So if we celebrate each other on the Old Women's Day, Old Men's Day, how do we do it properly? So it's not just, it doesn't just come down to a bodily concept.
Преданный, его как бы могущество в том заключается, что он может одухотворить любую вещь.
A devotee's power, potency is that
Ну и хорошо.
he can spiritualize
Мать Радхарани,
everything.
женский день, нормально.
So holiday of Shrimad Radharani, holiday of gopis,
Поэтому,
so a person can transform these things. We'll support these traditions in a sense that people do not get shocked. So if we do not celebrate each other on the Old Women's Day, a lot of mundane people, they will just go crazy. They will say that Hare Krishna is a dangerous sect. So they will think that you will commit such an aparatha. You know, you just, yeah, celebrate it, congratulate each other, but you just have to open the meaning of it. You have uncovered the meaning of it. Make it a spiritual topic. So there's to be no contradiction. Krishna is what matters. But if you connect a woman with God, she's very important. She becomes very important as well. A devotee woman is capable of doing a lot of things. Most of the work that is done in our movement, it's done by women. Most of the responsibilities, all the mistakes committed in ISKCON were made by men. Men are always at war.
Та же самая картина. Поэтому, конечно, нужно говорить об этом, дать уважение. Знаете, есть в Вриндаване праздник, хорошо, давайте заменим. Когда женщины палками бьют мужчин.
So there's a
Один день в году, значит, они
holiday in
имеют право
Vrindavan
полное,
when women,
палку и гонять мужчин по всему
one
Вриндавану и бить их,
day
как хотят.
a year, they can take a stick and
Давайте
beat their
15
men up.
марта тогда такой день введем, если вам нравится, пожалуйста.
So let's celebrate it. Let's celebrate it the same way on the All Women's Day, the 8th of March,
Встаньте как шелк.
when all the women can beat the man with a stick.
Есть такой день тоже, где женщина может вот так освободить себя от каких-то впечатлений,
See, that's a
какой-то эксплуатации, да?
holiday that they have in India.
Ими же повелевает мужчина, там, семья. Делай то, делай это, вот плохо, то, другое, третье. Муж, знаете, такой, уже, знаете, такой, зажиревший.
So usually,
Вот раз в году берет палку и гоняет вот палкой, там, все эти вещи.
when the man is too relaxed,
Это
the
называется
woman takes up a stick and starts chasing her man. So let's celebrate the 8th of March, the All Women's Day, in this way. Other questions? Giridhari Prabhu?
Не, я закончу одной басней, естественно, басни.
So I just wanted to finish it with one story, with one fable.
Не, вопросы продолжай, и в конце я басню расскажу.
Подскажите, пожалуйста, как быть, если во время джапы ум думает о служении? Как его выполнять? Правильная ли такая джапа?
So when I chant japa and I'm thinking about rendering service,
Неплохая джапа.
is that a normal thing?
Служение, джапа неплохая,
Well,
но,
if you think
пожалуйста,
about service during chanting japa, it's not so bad.
подумать о самой джапе.
But well, it's better to think about the japa itself,
Делайте попытку.
even a little bit. Try.
Неплохая джапа.
It's not a bad japa in this case.
Но все-таки старайтесь просто какую-то часть джапы прослушивать, вибрацию всякую.
But anyways, try to listen to the way you chant. Listen to the sound.
Правда ли, что Шрила Прабхупада сказал, что если соблюдать 4 регулирующих принципа,
Is it true that when Prabhupada said if you
Прабхупада после
follow all
оставления тела
four
заберет нас к себе?
regulative principles and chanting 16 rounds of japa, Prabhupada will, when we die, he will take us with him.
Уже забрал.
Of course, undoubtedly.
Не бросил.
Undoubtedly. He has already taken us all there. He will not leave us behind.
Можно ли делать пометки карандашом в Бхагавад-гите?
Can I make some marks with the pencil Bhagavad Gita?
Духовные учителя говорят, не пачкайте книги.
Well, some spiritual masters say that do not do that.
Записные книжки лучше, тетради. Вот. Но кто-то не слушает, кто-то совершенно.
Have a copybook and do it, but some people do not follow it.
Обычные люди, они все равно что-то будут писать, предпочитают. Да.
You know, usual people, they
Привычка. Но вообще,
do it, that's like a habit.
писать, конспекты ведите.
But I wouldn't advise it. Have yourself like a workbook.
Амала Камал Прабху. Дорогой Гуру Махарадж, есть
Question
один
from
старший
Amala Kabal
вайшнав,
Prabhu.
ученик Шрилы
So there's one
Прабхупады,
senior
очень
disciple
вдохновляет
of
его проповедь.
Srila
Скажите,
Prabhupada,
пожалуйста,
Mahatma
можно ли
Prabhu.
нам, вашим ученикам,
Can
слушать
we,
его проповедь,
your
развивать с ним
disciples,
отношения,
listen
понимать
to
Шрилу?
his
Не видите ли вы?
listen to his
Противоречия
lectures and
мы проводили эфиры.
accept them as a Shiksha Guru?
Это такой преданный, потрясающий.
No, he's a great devotee, of course.
Очень хорошее общение. Поможет.
We've had some conversations with him also,
Вопросы кончились, спасибо большое.
Басня.
so I see no trouble in that. Okay, now this fable.
Басня. Напоминание мужчинам о природе их. Твердило масло,
So just
подходя к огню.
one time to remind men about
Нет,
their true
нет,
nature.
себя я твердым сохраню. Что до огня, его я с детства знаю. И все-таки игривое тепло. Его
So that's about a piece of butter that was talking to a fire, and fire was attracting this butter more and more. Butter was resistant,
Кричало масло, разум свой теряя. Не стыдно мне, что от любви я таю.
and then the butter said, "There's no shame for me that I'm melting because of love."
Упала и в огне сгорела.
Then fell into the fire and
Поймите
melted.
правильно меня. Мужчину масло олицетворяет.
So you have to understand that butter
Подобие огня.
is like a man, and fire is like a woman, attracting this butter all the time.
Мужчина горд тем, что рассудок в нем сегодня тверд. Его природа в целом такова.
So the point is that
Ближности два Тем более, побыв наедине,
Man should keep their
знает,
cool,
и уже
and as soon as you are getting advanced to the fire, you
Вот на
melt.
этой тяжелой ноте
As soon as you
позвольте
get closer to women, you just melt. You lose yourself in there.
Спасибо всем.
So we'll finish on that positive
Грантарадж,
episode.
Бхагаватам ки джай, Шрила Прабхупада ки джай,
Да.
Чайтанья Чандра Чаран прабhu ки джай, Нитай Гора Премананде Хри-бол. Спасибо всем, дорогие преданные, что пришли.
So thank you all, dear devotees, for
Следующий
coming
эфир у
here
нас,
today.
намечается на пятницу, если я не ошибаюсь.
So next time we meet
Слушать,
on
лекцию
Friday,
Шрилы Прабхупады.
we're gonna listen to Srila Prabhupada's lecture together with Chaitanya Chandra Charan prabhu.
Харе Кришна.
So please come. May you all have a good day.